Healing minds, inspiring voices, living truth, making choices. This is your space. Just be you. Authentically peculiar with Marcia. Welcome to a space where healing is real, where your voice matters and your truth is enough. With Authentically Peculiar. Season 5, the year of expansion, healing deeper, living louder, stepping fully into who you are. Authentically Peculiar with Marcia. Back to Authentically Peculiar with Marcia. That's the first thing I need to do is just take a deep breath. I need everybody in
I know.
America, all around the globe to just
Very
take
appropriate.
a deep breath because today I have my guest, and I'm going to keep his bio short because I want to dive into this conversation today. I've known Dr. Brian Clardy, who holds a Ph.D. as a doctor of history for 40 years.
40 years. That's a long time.
And we were kids, like 17, 18, 19 years
Right.
old, going to the University of Tennessee at Martin.
Hmm.
And Dr. Clardy is my go-to political analyst. When the world is blowing up and going crazy, I'm going to reach out to him to have a conversation. And this is actually going to be a special edition because today we're going to talk about war, power, and the mental health of democracy. And for the lack of better words, what the hell is going on in the world? Doc, thank you so much for agreeing to be here. We're probably going to meet again before the voting cycle really gets
Almost
into
definitely.
swing because I'm pissed.
You're not alone.
I don't even have any other words besides I'm pissed, especially about Memphis, and we're gonna get it
Oh,
into it.
yeah.
But you know, today I'm gonna say this. First of all, welcome and thank you again.
Thank you
Oh,
once again. I think we both need this moment. We really do. We're the
we
tipping
need
point.
this moment. Yeah, I think so. I think that after VP Kamala Harris lost, uh, or I ain't gonna say the election was stolen, but we know the truth about some stuff, lost. In the Black community, we all kind of went into a silent place and in
Mhm.
a silent act of rebellion. I posted something earlier today that said there's no more opportunity for silence. We've got to go to work. What are your thoughts and what do you believe the emotions are right now around the globe as we're watching all this conflict, this political division, and the re-emergence of Jim Crow? I don't have a better way
Well,
to say it.
let me go back to election night 2024. I
Yes.
stayed up most of the night, and I didn't like the way the trends were going earlier in the night, but I was waiting for the blue states, those swing states, to start to come in. And
Mm-hmm.
it was getting late, so I went to bed. I said, this is going to be like 2020. We won't know for several days.
Mm-hmm.
And something woke me up about 3:30 that morning. I turned on
Mm-hmm.
the television, and the banner headlines just made me sick.
Yeah.
Trump on the path toward reelection. And sure enough, Pennsylvania dropped, and it was over. And I said to myself, what have we done?
Yep.
And I
Yep.
had a bad feeling going into the inauguration, and I wasn't going to watch it, and I didn't watch it live. I did
Mm-hmm.
that just as an act of protest. But I
Yeah.
went back and listened to the speech later, and I said, this is a different Trump than the one that was president before. He is totally unhinged.
Mm-hmm.
He is crazy. The
Mm-hmm.
people who are supporting him are co signing with this. And
Mm-hmm.
anything, our worst nightmares could probably be realized these next 4 years.
Yeah.
Sadly, I was right. And
Mm-hmm.
here we are.
Mm-hmm.
Here we are. We are in a war of choice that did not have to happen. We are facing Jim Crow 2.0.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And that other shoe, whatever it is, or wherever direction is coming, hasn't dropped yet.
It has
But we
not.
are in a very scary and precarious moment in the history of this country, of this world. Democracy is on life support, sanity
Mm-hmm.
is on life support.
Mm-hmm.
And
Mm-hmm.
I don't know where all of this is going to land, but I, like you, I'm very upset about this. I'm very nervous and anxious about what's coming. And the events of the last few days have really, really put me in a bad spot, especially with the Supreme Court's ruling, which I'll talk about that during the course of the hour. And of course, what happened in Nashville yesterday. Now, I will say, out of what happened in Nashville, especially the movement led by Justin Pearson, um, uh, on the floor of the House of Representatives of Tennessee, gave me some hope.
Mm-hmm.
These were
Mm-hmm.
young people and these were older people who were not backing down yesterday,
At all.
and they were not scared.
At
And the
all.
protesters were very adamant, and they did not leave that chamber with their heads held low,
Right.
which
Right.
means that we're boning up for a fight,
We're
and it's going to be a
boning
long
up
one.
for a fight. It's going to be long. I think that people who
Mm-hmm.
are lying to themselves and not making preparation are going to be sadly lost in this
Yeah.
fight. I think that people aren't coming into a real mindset of what's happening right
Mm-hmm.
now. Anytime you can make Justin Pearson cuss,
Oh, I saw that with that trooper.
he he cussed old school Memphis style.
He did.
I said, ooh, y'all that messed around and pulled out the lineage of Nat Turner and that boy.
Denmark VC Gabriel Prosser. Yeah. All of the above.
Yes, all of the above. And
Mm-hmm.
and I
Angela
don't
Davis.
think that they don't understand how we aren't our ancestors,
We're not.
how we're going to fight because our ancestors fought. And we're not going to lay down and just take it. We're not going to do that. And so I'm going to say this as a therapist, and I'm going to get that part out of the way.
Mm-hmm.
For your mental well being, everyone that's listening, I need you to take moments and breathe
Mm-hmm.
and process where you are and what you can control. Don't move yourself to complete emotional reaction, but logical reaction to all of the things that's going on. They want an emotional uproar so that they can justify Black people being out of control. So we had to do this.
Right.
Maintain your steady control and your
Mm-hmm.
wellness during this time because we're not giving them any reason
Nope.
outside of their own idiotic beliefs and their fragility to respond in the way that they're responding. So,
And
Doc,
the way
tell
that
me,
they want to respond.
and the way that they want to respond, absolutely. They're looking to respond in a very aggressive manner. They're looking to try to get a high. It is
Mm-hmm.
a egotistical high out of inducing harm to a
Mm-hmm.
race of people. And that's what they're looking for. How do you think this political instability and international conflict impacts us mentally, physically, and psychologically?
Well, it's constant. It never
Mhm.
lets up. From the time this man got back into office, he started out with he was going to take Greenland. He was going to make Canada the 51st state. He was going to change the Gulf of Mexico to the Gulf of America. He was going to turn the DOD into the Department of War, back to the pre 1947. And then the tariffs, and then the microaggressions, and the macroaggressions, and then the profanity, and then I mean it just keeps
It keeps
building up,
going.
keeps
Mhm.
building up, and then he goes in and kidnaps Maduro,
Oh,
and and then he does an act of piracy on the high seas with Venezuela, and then
yes.
he starts overnight, and I knew he was moving assets into the region for a reason, then he starts this preemptive, unprovoked, unneeded, unnecessary war with Iran. And it's going to be very hard for us to get out of this one. This is not going to
Especially
be like
when
the first Gulf War where we
Iran,
won in 40 days. This is going to be much longer.
this is going to be longer, but I believe that the idea to attack Iran came from a misconceived notion that they weren't prepared. I
Okay.
said when my son was in Afghanistan,
Mm-hmm.
you can't take a war to a country that you don't really understand the landscape. You can't take a war to a country where you are using falsehood and lies, just like with the Bush administration, use
Exactly.
falsehood and lies to create a war that there was no way that for you to win the
No,
war. And
none.
that is the same situation. All of these empty threats about the Strait of Hormuz, all of these empty threats, so we're going to escort you. Iran is not fazed by any of these blatant threats that go unfulfilled because every threat has been cowled down. What are your thoughts about that?
I don't get, I mean, Pete Hegseth was
The
not even
drunk?
qualified to be a Fox News host, much less the Secretary of Defense. Common sense would have told anyone that if the United States had hit Iran with a preemptive strike and start moving into the Persian Gulf, the first thing Iran was going to do was to close the Strait of Hormuz. Common sense would have told anyone that.
Well,
And the
common
Strait of
sense
Hormuz
ain't
is a
so
very
common.
important lifeline to the larger economy.
Exactly. Exactly. There was no common sense. You had a bunch of uneducated, idiocentric individuals in an office who are running on egotistical, maniacal ideology of control. Their fragility or their need, it's no different than them being kicked out of their home countries to come here in the first place because they weren't found worthy to remain in their country. Because so that's something I want you to hit on for us.
Oh,
People
yeah.
seem to think that those first colonizers and settlers were these happy-go-lucky individuals that enjoyed the opportunity to come and invade another country. No, they weren't wanted.
At
They
all.
were scoundrels. But can you please talk about that
Yes.
for a moment?
England, okay, England has historically always been very class conscious.
Mm-hmm.
And one of the things that really sets the haves from the have nots apart in that country, in that society, was the ownership of land
Mm-hmm.
and the acquisition of resources.
Mm-hmm.
Very few people have that. England is not a huge country.
Not at all.
And so there's not enough land to go around. And those who had the land, had the power, they were not going to relinquish it to people that they considered surplus population.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And so when they decided that they were going to come to the Americas, they had it in their thinking process. Well, oh, I'm going to go over and I'm going to kill these red folk over here. I'm going to take their land and make it mine. And then over the course of time, I'll be just as good as the people I just left behind in England. And it didn't
Mm-hmm.
work that way.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And I mean, just that thug mentality. And just imagine the audacity of going to another country, another region of the world, telling that people, I am entitled to your land. You have to dress like me, talk like me, think like me, pray like me. You have to be
They
me.
do.
And,
They
and,
do
and, and,
now.
and
They will go to other countries on vacation and try to tell people how to speak.
how to live. I mean, can you just the sheer arrogance of that?
Mm-hmm.
And
Mm-hmm.
that has been the guiding force that has guided this country since its beginning.
Since the
Now,
beginning.
here's the thing. We're coming up on the 250th anniversary of the Declaration of Independence.
Mm-hmm.
We are yet to have a serious national conversation on the role that racism and white
Mm-hmm.
supremacy played in taking this hemisphere in the first place, in the
Exactly.
institution of chattel slavery, Jim Crow, toxic masculinity. wars of aggression, we are yet to have a conversation about what motivates that. And
Right.
until we do, we're going to keep having these problems
Hmm.
generation after generation.
Absolutely. And you know, the thing that about it, you mentioned the Constitution. If people read the Constitution, Abraham Lincoln said this: we need to revise this, I believe, every 20 years. If I'm not mistaken, either 10 or 20 years, and you can
Mm-hmm.
correct me if I'm wrong. Revise this Constitution because somewhere in his wherewithal, he knew that as evolution occurred, as the country develops, the Constitution could not remain the same as it did in 1776. It couldn't remain the same
No.
because where we are now is not where we were then.
Yeah.
And the fact that these individuals, Peter Thiel and all of those imbeciles, want
Mm-hmm.
to rely on a constitution that was written that does not address the needs of the inhabitants is asinine to me. What are your
Well,
thoughts about that?
even more so, you have an entire school of jurisprudence out there that privileges this idea of original intent. Okay, what do I mean by that? These judicial conservatives have always had, since the beginning, this idea of a strict construction of the Constitution, that the
Mm-hmm.
Constitution cannot be interpreted except for what's written on the page. You cannot go beyond the scope of that. And this is here again that states' rights argument that comes out of that. The whole 9 yards that was used to justify slavery, Jim Crow, segregation, all of this strict constructionist states' rights idea of how to interpret the Constitution. There's an entire school of thought that comes from that. Robert Bork subscribed to it. Many of the members of the Federalist Society, the Heritage Foundation, all of them subscribe to this idea that the Constitution is not a fluid document, that it is what it is, and it has to be interpreted according to the original intent of the framers, which is bull.
Mm-hmm. Bull. Mm-hmm.
The
Mm-hmm.
world is a totally different place than it was at the Philadelphia Convention and the
Exactly.
ratifying debates afterwards.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
But
Absolutely different.
and and they want to keep it that way because deep down they want to go back to the old order. And I'm going to tell you, the right has been playing this long game for a long time. They have been winning small victories incrementally since the
Mm-hmm.
1960s as to how best to overturn those gains that were made in the 50s and 60s. How to pack the
Exactly.
court, how to take
Mm-hmm.
the state legislatures, how to win governorships, how to, how do I put this? How to rev up the presidency to be this unitary executive. What we
Mm-hmm.
saw in Project 2025, this has been building for decades,
Decades.
and now it's
This
come
has
to a
just come
head.
around. Exactly. And when you think about it, two things that run a current thought with me is one, there is such a fear of becoming the minorities in 2030 by 2030
That's it.
that it's driving this need to put themselves in this position of supposed power. That's one thing. The second thing that's always a driver for me is the mere fact that most of the individuals, and I'm gonna say this, and people gonna say whatever. Trump
Mm.
is not even in control. He's a
Oh no,
puppet on the string.
this is
Everybody's
bigger than
like,
Donald
"Go
Trump.
Trump, yay, yay, yay," but he's just a puppet. He's truly a puppet that he's just a loudmouth puppet at that. But here's my question for you.
Mm-hmm.
When you think about all the puppeteering and all of those different things that are happening in the political front of things, when you hear these unlearned people say, the Democrats were the ones that enslaved us first. What are your thoughts about that foolishness?
Well, I want to break something when I hear people say that because see what they need to understand. Yeah, the Democratic Party in the 1850s and 1860s and going forward into the early part of the 20th century Yes, they were the party that defended slavery. They
Mm-hmm.
were the party that defended segregation and disenfranchisement.
Mm-hmm.
That's true.
Mm-hmm.
But the parties changed. They totally switched ideologies. The Republican Party, let's be real, let's be totally honest at this point. The Republican Party gave up on Reconstruction in
They
1877.
did. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And black folks, yeah, I understand the sentimentality. You want to vote for the party that ended slavery, but
But it didn't really
Republicans
end slavery.
continued to
But go ahead.
gaslight black folks.
Mm-hmm.
They
Mm-hmm.
gaslighted black folks. So we were the party of Lincoln, and
Mm-hmm.
the Democrats were the party that, yeah, that had the segregationists in Congress, like the Bilbos and the Thurmans and the Eastlands. Yeah, they had all
Mm-hmm.
that. But
Mm-hmm.
gradually, as the Democratic Party became more urban, more immigrant based, more based on this idea of the collective of unions and equality, as that party became more liberal, especially from Roosevelt going all the way to Kennedy and Johnson. And when Kennedy and Johnson started supporting civil rights legislation, some of those Southern Democrats first had a hero in George Wallace. Okay, George
Mm-hmm.
Wallace wasn't going to go anywhere. He was never going to be president. So they started
Mm-hmm.
gravitating toward the Republicans, and it took Richard Nixon to really help to make that happen.
Yeah. Yeah.
Richard Nixon's Southern strategy, beginning in his first term, he wanted to get Southerners who were disaffected with the National Democratic Party now to switch over to the Republican Party. And it didn't go as far as he wanted it to. It didn't
Mm-hmm.
happen on Nixon's watch, but it happened on Reagan's.
They
And
did.
this is where we begin to see from Reagan going forward these old Dixiecrats, former Democrats, now becoming Trump Republicans.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And that is exactly how it evolved. So the parties switched. And I
Yes.
always recommend this book to anyone who comes out with that crap. It was a book called Farewell to the Party of Lincoln by Nancy
Mm.
Weiss. But
Okay.
they'll never pick that up. They will use that as a talking point, and that talking point is pure fiction. I can't
Mm-hmm.
use the word I wanted to say. It starts with bull, but it was pure fiction.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And that's the thing is just when you don't educate yourself on constitutionality, on rights, on the fight. You can say stupid things like, oh, well, I made money when Trump was in office, so that's why I voted for him. Those single issue voters are the ones that have led the forefront of where we are today
You
because
had a
they
lot of
can't
black
see.
men who voted for Donald Trump in
Those
2024
are the ones I'm talking about. Their
because they
single
could
issue
not stand
was
the fact of a woman, a black woman, being president of the United States. Now,
that was the first
let's just
single
keep it
issue.
real.
That was the first single issue was they didn't want a black woman to lead men. The second single issue was those that were entrepreneurs in certain business industries were making money. And that's what they saw. But they didn't see that they were passing laws saying that it was okay for grown men to bed 13-year-olds without repercussion. They didn't see that it was okay for those physical assaults on women. They didn't see the pedophilia was going on. They didn't see that they want to track women's menstrual cycle, so that they can get impregnated to keep the white race going. They didn't see any of that. They didn't see that there was going to be a cut to pre-existing diseases causing people to die unnecessarily. They
Right.
didn't see any of the things
Nope,
that
they
at
didn't.
the top of the year 350,000 Black women lost their jobs because of an inferiority
Gosh.
fear.
Mm-hmm.
Because one, we know that Black women are the most educated on this planet.
By far.
Peter Till's dissertation talked about Black women, power, and education. So they're running on this fear, which is why they have this attack on industries like nursing, accounting, and mental health, saying they're no longer professional entities.
See, see, see.
It's all the long running game. And you're absolutely right. This game has been played And here's where I think, and please weigh in. Here's where I think that the naturalness of the Black community, whether you say African American, Black American, however, across the diaspora,
Sure.
here's where we set ourselves up. We have a human heart.
Hmm.
We nurture, we protect,
Hmm.
we embrace. And that human heart, I believe, is the reason behind us not fighting in the level of diligence sometimes that we need to fight.
Plays a role.
What are your thoughts about that?
You know, as you were talking, I kept going back to the way Ketanji Brown Jackson was treated during the confirmation hearings.
But she
And
held
here
her
is this
own.
this top flight, educated, articulate, well qualified Black woman
Hmm.
is having to be subjugated to the scrutiny of a Marcia Blackburn who does
Mm.
not have a law degree, who should not be sitting on that committee.
Hmm.
And she's questioning Ketanji Brown Jackson's worth.
Right.
This is the kind of bull Black women have had to put up with. These microaggressions, these digs at their humanity, this wanting to stereotype them, wanting to take them back to those old tropes, whether it's Mammy or Sapphire or Jezebel,
Hmm.
and looking at them through those negative lenses
Hmm.
rather than to see their qualifications and worth.
Exactly.
It is exhausting for
Hmm.
Black women. It's exhausting for Black men because they tried to do the same thing to us.
Yep. Yep. And the thing about it is they have become pretty good at causing a conflict between Black men and women.
Uh-huh.
And it keeps us unprotecting on both sides
Yeah,
because Black women gonna stand up for Black men,
right.
but there's a level of
Yeah,
physical strength that may not be needed, but at the same or that's needed that may not come forward. But
right.
oftentimes Black women don't feel protected by Black men in
That's
certain
true, sadly.
instances. And unfortunately, we're not only fighting white America, we're fighting Black men in America, and
Yeah,
they don't even realize that we're not their enemy. We're literally
exactly.
trying to push them up. And
Exactly.
so even in that, in these conflicts, in the state of America as it is, one thing I appreciate about Iran is they said, we don't have a problem with Black people. It's the other folks that we want to
When the
deal with.
hostage crisis first started in
Hmm.
1979, that
Hmm.
Thanksgiving, who did they release first?
Right. Right, right. And so we're still not that enemy. They recognize that we have been long suffering as well. And that we're having pockets of fight, but we need a collective effort of fight. I want to switch a little bit to the Iran conflict and
Yes.
this current war that is absolutely unnecessary, unconstitutional in my sight. I
It
know in
is.
the lens of the UN is unconstitutional as well. What are the biggest concerns about this war with Iran?
Well, let me go back to and explain first how we got here. This is how
Hmm.
we even got to this point.
Hmm.
Of course, Iran it was called Persia back in the day. It was ruled by the Pahlavi family. Going all the way back to Safavid Persia and all that good stuff. They
Hmm.
had all the wealth, had all the money and the power and so forth. By the time we get to the end of the Second World War, Iran has become, as it were, not a process democracy as such, but somewhat of one.
Hmm.
Somewhat of one. They had a little bit of experience with democracies. And they elected a prime minister who was a socialist named Mohammad Mossadegh.
Hmm.
Mossadegh was elected, popularly elected. One of the first things he tried to do was to nationalize Iran's energy supplies because he saw the West, especially the Americans, the Dutch, and the British, taking advantage of them. So he began to
Hmm.
nationalize them. And when you
Mhm.
when leaders start to nationalize their industries, especially in those days, it makes the West nervous, and they automatically assume it had to do with Cold War realities that the Soviets were behind it.
Mhm.
So our CIA and British intelligence decided they were going to foment a revolution against Mossadegh under what was called Operation Ajax. And sure
Mhm.
enough, it worked. They got Mossadegh out. He was under house arrest until he died in 1971. They put the Shah, Mohammad Reza Pahlavi, back on the throne. Not only that, they gave him the military hardware and the military resources to have the most powerful army in the Middle East, which was important because Iran bordered next to the Soviet Union. They were going to be our other outpost in addition to Israel. Not only that, we trained his secret police, the Savaki, the Savakis, rather, to help the Shah to consolidate power by waging war on his enemies. The Shah had the worst human rights record in the region, terrorized his own people with these secret arrests and executions using the CIA trained Savakis. Not only that, the United States and the British got and the Dutch got huge concessions, got a lot of money in terms of an oil consortium, which gave the West access to very cheap oil resources.
Mhm.
And so this relationship between the United States and Iran under the Shah was based on that. Meanwhile, the people of Iran are hating the Shah, and for good reason. And by definition, they're giving us the side eye because we helped put this guy on the throne.
Right.
And then, of course, understand that in terms of religion, Iran has always had uh, a huge Shia population. And of
Mhm.
course, the Shia Islam is the major religion there, major form of Islam there. The Ayatollah Khomeini had been in exile in Paris. He comes back just as the Iranian Revolution gets started, and so the Shah is out on his backside. He's out on his keister. He's got cancer. Jimmy Carter, trying to be Mr. Nice Christian, even though no other country wants the Shah, he allows the Shah to come to New York to get treatment. But the people of Iran remembered what the Shah had done,
Mhm.
and they
Mhm.
want him to return back to Iran to face war crimes trials. And
Right.
so when Carter didn't hand the Shah over, well, then November 4th, 1979, that's when the students stormed the embassy and take hostages. And of course, that hostage crisis lasted for 444 days. And the relationship between Iran and the United States has not been the same since. It's
Right.
been very contentious. Iran has supported groups like Hezbollah and so forth and other so called terrorist groups. But then here comes Iran gets into a war with Iraq in 1980, which, that war was basically fought to a stalemate. But the sad thing about it is the Reagan administration not only gave arms to Iraq, and gave
Mhm.
those resources to Iraq. You had this big meeting between Saddam Hussein and Don Rumsfeld, but at the same time, selling arms and selling supplies to the Iranians, hoping the Iranians will put pressure on Hezbollah to let the hostages out of Lebanon, when Reagan had clearly said that we will not deal with terrorists. And there,
Mhm.
now we have the Iran Contra scandal. And so this relationship between Iran and the United States has been a self made, preventable disaster from the beginning. Barack Obama had this problem resolved in 2015.
They hate
He,
it so much.
he, and Obama didn't rule out the force, the use of force. If
Right.
the Iranians had not been compliant in turning over those nuclear supplies, Obama was going to bomb the hell out of them. He was very clear about
He,
that.
he was
But
clear about it.
but John Kerry and Wendy Sherman, they were astute diplomats, and they hammered out that nuclear arms deal. And the first thing Donald Trump does when he comes to office is rips it up. He abrogates it.
And end up paying more with his I'm not cussing.
Go ahead.
End up paying more because he doesn't know the art of the deal
At all.
and left us screwed
Mm-hmm.
because here's what we know for certain, right?
Mm-hmm.
That man is sick
Yeah.
mentally and physically.
and spiritually.
Uh, that's a black hole, but there's just a black hole spiritually. Just sick. I'm not God, so I can't say how long he got on this planet,
I don't either. I can't.
but all of the repercussions of his puppet masters, we're still going to have to deal with
Long after he's gone.
long after he's gone. And people don't realize that that includes these open-ended threats where China has made some moves. Russia's making some moves. They're making moves in Africa. They're making moves in the Middle East. Everywhere is making moves, and here all we have is a bunch of open-ended language going nowhere of threats,
Right.
which is jeopardizing everything. Because here, just in the last 24 hours, multiple colleges have had cyber attacks.
We did. Canvas. Yeah.
And in those attacks, my concern is about things like everything is electronic, our water pumping systems, all those kind of things. Cyber attacks can actually impact those areas. People aren't thinking about those
Right.
things.
Right.
All of this based on egotistical individuals with false control.
Right.
How then does that come into play? Because I'm switching gears again to the Voter Right Act and democracy.
Because the idiocy that led the United States to go into Iraq 20 years ago and that led us down this total blunder back in February.
Mm-hmm.
It is the same mentality that says we are going to rip up the post World War II, post 1960 social order and return the United States back to a Jim Crow reality. They are linked. They are linked.
Absolutely. And so can you explain to people who may not be abreast of the knowledge about Jim Crow?
Okay. Right after the Civil War had been fought and won, three amendments were added to the Constitution. 13th Amendment ended slavery, not the Emancipation Proclamation. 15th Amendment, which was ratified in 1870, gave black men, not black women, sadly enough, and didn't give any woman the right to vote. Of course,
Mm-hmm.
women will have to wait until the 19th Amendment in 1920. But the 14th Amendment is of particular importance because one of the things the 14th Amendment does is that it made the formerly enslaved citizens of the United States. That overturned a Supreme Court decision back in 1857 called the Dred Scott decision, which
Mm-hmm.
Roger B. Taney said blacks, neither free nor slaves, were citizens of the United States. And so
Mm-hmm.
the 14th Amendment gave citizenship to the formerly enslaved African and made it a law. And this is something else Donald Trump's kind of trying to get rid of. The idea
Mm-hmm.
if you're born in the United States, you are a citizen in the United States automatically. Okay. Okay. And then there's another part of the 14th Amendment. 14th Amendment, of course, was ratified in 1868, which says that all Americans have equal protection under the law.
Mm-hmm.
Plain enough. Plain as day on
Plain and
paper.
simple. Mm-hmm.
What the Supreme Court started doing in different cases going back to the 1870s and 1880s, and definitely by the time we get to Plessy, was to use the 14th Amendment to the Equal Protection Clause to do two things. One was to protect the rights of business from
Mm-hmm.
taxation and regulation, either by the states or by the national government. That's laissez-faire capitalism. American industry started booming. They had no safeguards, no regulations. They did whatever they wanted. But the other thing was more insidious, and that was this idea of dual federalism, that the federal government would have its responsibilities, the states would have their responsibilities, and
Mm-hmm.
neither the twain should meet.
Mm-hmm.
And so, by the time, what happens when the Redeemer governments come back into power after Reconstruction, they began passing these Jim Crow statutes, which said, you know, you can segregate on a basis of public accommodations, seating arrangements, hospitals, graveyards, schools, the whole 9 yards.
Mm-hmm.
It begged the question by 1896, do these Jim Crow statutes violate the letter and the spirit of the 14th Amendment's Equal Protection Clause? That
Mm-hmm.
was the crux of the matter in the Plessy decision. That was the major case,
Mm-hmm.
major
Mm-hmm.
question in the case. And the court said, no, you could have equal separate facilities as long as they're equal.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
That's when separate but equal gets codified into law with that particular decision. And they accuse liberals of judicial activism. But anyway, but there was a
I
Supreme Court
digress.
justice
Mm-hmm.
from Kentucky. His name was John Marshall Harlan. He wrote the minority dissenting opinion in that case. And
Mm-hmm.
Harlan had a very iffy track record on race himself.
Right.
But he, by the time we get to 1896, he's on this question. Wait a minute. Our Constitution is colorblind. And
Mm.
interestingly enough, Charles Hamilton Houston and other African American legal scholars would use Harlan's dissenting opinion in Plessy to fight segregation in the courts. But it was an
Mm-hmm.
upward slog because here again, Jim Crow was the law of the land and the country, but particularly, and this is where the events of the last few days are important, in particular and especially in the South,
Yes.
especially when it came to voting rights. Of course, yeah, 15th Amendment gave black men the right to vote. Yeah, no doubt, no question. But remember, states have the right to determine eligibility. And
Mm-hmm.
so the states would have these things like how many bubbles are in a bar of soap?
Mm-hmm.
How many jelly beans are in this jar?
Yes.
Take a literacy test. Recite verbatim the entire federal constitution or the entire state constitution or the town charter.
But you want me to take a literacy test, and it was against the law for me to learn how to read and write.
Exactly. And I majored in history and political science, and I can't even recite the Constitution verbatim.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that's impossible. And
But
they
our
couldn't either.
ancestors did. Our ancestors did, but their ancestors couldn't.
But here's the thing, even if someone had gone into a courthouse and were able to recite, and you saw this in the opening of the movie Selma,
Mm-hmm.
Oprah's character recited the entire preamble word for word. And the election clerk said, okay, how many judges are there in Alabama? And she still named 120. Name them. See, keep moving the bar higher and higher to where
It's
nobody could pass
always.
those literacy tests.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Poll taxes. Poll taxes were extremely high. African Americans in the South were barely below the poverty line. How could they pay those poll taxes? And the voucher system, who's going to go in and vouch for them? And even if they did
Exactly.
attempt to register to vote, their names and addresses were in the paper. This is setting them up to be lynched, which happened a
Mm-hmm.
lot over this
A
voting
lot.
rights question. And
Mm-hmm.
so in the South, this system was deeply entrenched. And so even by the time you get to 1915 and the founding of the Second Klan, now those are now the enforcers of the social order.
Mm-hmm.
And so when you take all that into consideration in the South in particular, that type of racism and racial discrimination was just part of the DNA. But let me be
Mm-hmm.
clear about something. The North was not that much better.
At all. Listen, say
Let's be
that part
clear.
again because there are so many people, including some of my family members, saying, "Yeah, we wouldn't have never tolerated it in the North. Y'all wasn't much better.
No,
You wasn't
the
much better."
North was just as segregated.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I
Mm-hmm.
mean, look at what happened in East St. Louis. Look at what happened in Chicago. There was a spectacle lynching in Duluth, Minnesota in 1920. There
Right.
was a spectacle lynching in Omaha, Nebraska in 1918 during the Red Summer of 1819, the post World War I era.
Mm-hmm.
Until this country has a serious reckoning with the question of race and racial hatred, we will never, ever
Never.
get past any of this. But
Not
we
at
are,
all.
we are afraid to have that conversation.
They're afraid to have that conversation because people don't want to take accountability and the truth. So, what does protecting democracy look like beyond voting?
We have to become civically involved at every level of government. Okay,
Hmm.
we got midterm elections coming up for Congress.
Right?
That's great. Yeah, we need to watch and see whether the Democrats flip the House and the Senate. That's well, good and dandy. But
Hmm.
we need to be involved at the school board level, in the ward and precinct level, in city government, county government. You need people on the ballot running for county commissioner, county magistrate, whatever that is. We need
Hmm.
people going to those meetings, those school board meetings, those city hall meetings, getting on some of those non-paid boards in our different municipalities.
Hmm. Hmm.
We need people involved in state government. I know that state and local government seems to be boring, but as Tip O'Neill told us, all politics is local. So we need to be able to keep up with local politics, state politics, the politics of our counties, of our schools, and of our institutions. Because at the end of
Absolutely.
the day, those all feed into the tributaries of national government.
Hmm.
And
Hmm.
even beyond national government, even beyond being involved in Washington, we need to very seriously keep up with and be engaged in what's going on in the larger world. If
Absolutely.
9/11 taught us anything, 9/11 taught us that we could easily lose our lives on this soil in our own backyards by people who don't like the United States. Those two oceans don't protect us anymore.
The truth is about that, it's not personally, I don't believe the potential destruction of America is going to come from bombing.
It won't.
I believe it's going to come through infrastructure. I believe that it's going to come
Right
from
here.
starvation.
Mm-hmm.
I believe that it's going to come from people being fed up and just leaving
Yeah,
and trying to get somewhere else. That's just my belief. I don't have
yeah.
anything to prove any of that, but that is my belief.
You're not too far off the mark, and I'm gonna tell you. In fact, you're spot on. I'm gonna tell you why. Going back to, and I know it's an old cliche. I get it about the fall of Rome, and everyone wants to use the fall of the Western Empire as an example of how empires are destroyed,
Hmm.
and that's a fair deduction. Societies, when systems break down, when systems become erratic and unstable, when you have this lopsided distribution of wealth and resources, where you have people who are in the majority who are disenfranchised, they're hungry, they have no hope. Zach De La Rocha from Rage Against the Machine said it better than I ever could. Hungry
Hmm.
people don't stay hungry for long.
They don't. Because here's what I'm concerned about. And I've been telling people, listen, stock up on your dried goods.
Yes.
Stock up on things that you know that you need, whether it's paper products or whatever, because the time is going to come when things are not going to be easily available. And I know people say, well, you got these conspiracies. No, I got reality.
Oh, those are realities.
COVID taught us
Mm-hmm.
that at any given moment, and now that there's a new virus that's out there that's going to lose control, like COVID did,
I'm afraid it will.
you're going to have to be prepared to move outside of your comfort zone.
Mm-hmm.
People need to switch their mindset into an awareness mindset in their local communities. One of my guests asked a question. And she's also a political analyst and a professor at Spelman.
Mm-hmm.
She asked a question: when are you going to challenge your local authorities about the environment? What are they doing? They're so busy running these data centers and stuff like that. What are they doing to protect your water source? What are
There it
they
is.
doing to protect your food source?
Mm-hmm. Air
How are
quality.
they helping you? Exactly, your air quality, just the whole 9 yards. What are your local officials doing? And very few people are asking those questions. Very few people are using that as a momentum on deciding who they're going to elect in these local elections. And so I know we're coming to an end because this hour went by quick, but And we have so much to talk about. So I know that we're going to come back
Oh,
as
we're
we get
definitely going to be
closer to the
talking some more.
midterm elections,
Uh-huh.
because I need people to really recognize, and I'm going to say this real quick to all those people in Georgia that have started this campaign about why they won't vote for the black woman running for
Oh,
governor.
God.
Y'all stop that foolishness. You see
Please.
where that landed us when y'all started that foolishness about VP Harris? Stop that foolishness. Y'all don't see that as a divide. Y'all don't see how they're going to use that as a manner to conquer the process and to eliminate things. Stop the foolishness. But I'm going to ask you, Doc,
Mm-hmm.
does anything give you hope right now?
Yes, I'm going to tell you what. I mentioned this a moment ago. We are not our grandparents. We have gotten a taste of freedom.
Mm-hmm. We not
Many of
losing
us
it.
have been around the world.
Mm-hmm.
We are literate. We are technologically savvy. We are empowered. We don't have to be afraid of being swinging at the end of a rope because we talk back at work.
Right.
We don't have that fear. And there's this new generation of young black folks who do not have filter or chill.
At all.
And there's some young black folks I'm scared of.
Mm-hmm.
They will take you out.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
We're not going to go back to Jim Crow 2.0
Not at all.
for that very reason. Because we're several generations away apart from slavery, several,
Mm-hmm. Several. Mm-hmm.
and we ain't going back to that.
At all.
We're not going back to the 50s, the 1950s, much less the 1850s.
At all.
And then, of course, we have coalitions of people in all races who understand the necessity that our freedom and their freedom is bound together. If they come after
Mm-hmm.
African Americans, they'll come after immigrants. If
Yes.
they come after immigrants, they'll come after landless and poor whites. If they
Mm-hmm.
come after the landless and poor whites, they'll come after union people. We
Yep.
are all bound together by that same garment of mutuality that Dr. King spoke about in the letter from a Birmingham jail. That was not the
Yes.
case in 1863.
At
It's
all.
certainly the case in 2023 and 2026. Our
Yes.
futures are bound together. So there are people of goodwill in all areas of society who see the bigger picture.
Mm-hmm.
But as
Mm-hmm.
it pertains to black folk, those institutions that we built since slavery and since segregation are too deeply entrenched.
Yes.
And we will come together
We will come
politically.
together
But
because
here's something
nobody's
like you
going
said
back.
earlier,
Mm-hmm.
the response cannot be rooted in violence.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
It cannot be rooted in riots and rebellions and shooting and all this, because all that's going to do is
Violence
set us up
begets
for a
violence.
situation where you're going to have people dying wholesale over
Mm-hmm.
what?
Mm-hmm.
We cannot use that model. We have to gin up the spirit of the 1960s through nonviolent protest and nonviolent engagement. And we have the tools at our
Yes.
disposal, literally in our hands. We can go around the world with the push of a button. We can be our
Mm-hmm.
own journalist. We can
And I'm gonna say
tell
this
our
now.
own stories.
I'm gonna say this because I got a little Malcolm in me too, and a whole lot of Nat Turner. But I'm gonna say this: us choosing a non-violent route does not mean we're not gonna protect ourselves.
Oh, we have to.
It does not mean. See, I think that that's what the misnomer is. There's
Yeah.
this belief that we aren't armed. We don't have a way to protect ourselves.
Oh,
Not
we do.
only are we physically armed, but we are mentally armed. Because
Oh.
here's what I know: when Silicon Valley folded for a while in the 90s,
Mm-hmm.
we knew how to still eat. We knew how to still function. They were taking their own lives.
Right.
Our level of resilience and wisdom and knowledge super exceeds any other genre of people on this planet. Part of that is just DNA built.
It's built, yeah, of course.
It's just the melanin in our system running through the courses of our brains and our mindset. It's just the natural progression of things. We choose
No, we have a
humanism.
survival instinct.
Yeah, we have a natural survival instinct, but not only that, we do choose humanism. But if we have to defend ourselves,
We'll do it.
we shall and we will.
People
Doc,
don't want to talk about this part,
mhm.
but in the last years of his life, Martin Luther King carried a gun.
Listen, I want people to understand that Dr. King was not this just passive kumbaya person. Dr.
No,
King, just like Justin Pearson, you push that button, you're gonna get that side of me that you're not ready for.
he's gonna come out a bag on you.
Listen, and they better recognize it, they better understand it, and they better know that we are not our ancestors, but
Mm-hmm.
we derive from our ancestors.
Mm-hmm.
And our folks talk to us about what they experienced.
That's right. My
You know,
grandfather did not keep a 38 caliber handgun and a Winchester rifle because he liked to go hunting.
exactly. When my grandmother passed, my grandmother was 91 when she passed. And we were cleaning out her closet. Then I know we gotta go. None of us knew this woman had guns.
See?
I said, Lord have mercy. But then my mama reminded me, she said, she was out there on the front line fighting for civil rights.
Mm-hmm.
And she knew how to protect herself. And I was like, wow. And just know that I am my ancestors' wildest dream and maybe your
Mm-hmm.
ancestors' nightmare. We are not the same.
Right.
We are not the same. So, Doc, normally I close out and
I
ask,
have weapons.
and we'll have some and we'll get some more as necessary because I got a
And here's
whole
my thing.
tribe to
My thing is,
protect
when I get mad about something, that's not the first place I'm going to go to
at all.
at all.
House,
If I
who does
ever
that?
pull that gun out of that closet, it's going to be because I'm going to defend my home.
Exactly.
Somebody's got to go if I have to do that. That means my life is in imminent danger at that moment. But
And
just
that's the
because
rule
I'm
of
mad
thumb
over something, that's not going to be my first line of defense.
at all. At all. Why would it be? Why would it
I said,
be?
I'm scared of
Now,
jail.
if
That's one.
if you attempt to harm my body, those of my lineage, then I'm gonna protect myself.
Exactly. We
But
have a
I'm not
natural
going
God
to
given
run
right
and
to
wave a
defend our
gun just for the
families.
sake of waving it. That's foolishness and that's just mismanagement
Right.
of weaponry. Well, I'm gonna close out with this. I'm gonna ask you real quick, and I ask
Okay.
this of all of my
Sure.
guests, even though this not the end. We come running
Oh,
this
we're
back.
going to have some more conversations.
We're
Count
gonna have conversations in about a month.
them. Hmm.
How do you resonate, especially as a Black history professor? How do you resonate with being authentically peculiar?
Because I know that the God I believe in did not create us to be cookie cutter. He didn't even make, or she, or they, I don't know the identity, the gender identity of God, but God did not create any two snowflakes alike.
Exactly.
God did not create any person to be alike. You might have an identical twin somewhere.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but they're totally every human being is unique.
Mm-hmm.
I know I'm an anomaly. I did a
Mm-hmm.
presentation last night in Paducah, Kentucky on why Mozart matters. Now think
Mm-hmm.
about this. A black man growing up in South Fulton, Tennessee, rural South Fulton, Tennessee,
Mm-hmm.
comes back as a 58-year-old man talking about why the music of an 18th century European composer is relevant.
Well, now there's a question about Mozart's lineage.
Mozart and Beethoven.
Mhm,
Beethoven,
mhm.
I'm sorry, Beethoven was a brother. I mean, I'm
We
sorry, he
Beethoven, we
looked,
automatically know that he was black.
yeah.
We
But
got
anyway,
that. Anyway, we digress.
I was telling my mother when I was talking about the presentation, some of the looks I got, I'm like, yeah, we're diverse people. We have different interests. Everybody doesn't think alike. I have nothing against hip hop. I like hip hop. I'm not gonna lie, I was into Two Live Crew, Too Short, all that stuff. Yeah, yeah, yeah. I
Hmm.
was. But I also was listening to Bach and Beethoven too. I was also listening to
Exactly.
Public Enemy. I was listening to Public Enemy, and I was listening to Garth Brooks. We
Hmm.
all have different interests and diverse interests alike. And so when you embody that and you live that truth unashamedly, it makes life so much better because you
Exactly.
are happy with you and you're not trying to conform to what anyone else tries to project on you because that is stressful when you try
It
to
is.
live up to that particular standard to only to be accepted and to belong. I don't want to belong.
And I don't fit in anybody's box. Like, you could tell them since you met me at 18, I've never fit in anybody's box. I don't even know how that would work for me. So I'm being cremated because I won't fit in anybody's box. So I'm just saying.
I hear you. Ain't nothing wrong with that.
Yeah, but thank you again. Listen, you all, please, please, please become consciously aware of who you are electing and voting for. Vote in your best interest so that you can make sure that you protect democracy as we know it.
That's right.
Doc, thank you again so much for
Thank
being
you,
here. I
Marcia.
look forward to our next conversation. Have a
Absolutely.
beautiful weekend. Tell
You
Sheila I
too.
said, enjoy Mother's Day and you take
And
care.
you have a happy Mother's Day as well.
Thank you. Thank you.
All
I'll
right.
talk to you really soon.
To be continued. Bye
Yes, to be continued.
bye.
Thank you for sharing time and space with us today on Authentically Peculiar with Marcia. Don't forget to like, comment, and share the podcast with everyone that you know. In addition, go out and support each of the guests and their own social platforms. Buy their products, leave them a comment. We'll see you on the next episode of Authentically Peculiar with Marcia.